Hello from Branson, Missouri. My name is Nanny and I love to cook. And I need to give a little disclaimer this morning before I start. I know many of you have asked for recipes and demonstrations on making bread and rolls using white flour. And I promise you we're going to get to that. But today I want to show you something that I am very passionate about, and it's cooking with whole grains. Now, a few weeks ago I gave you a little information about 10 years ago my husband was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And before he was diagnosed, we had gone to Florida to visit some friends. And when we were going through their home, I saw this on her kitchen cabinet. And I'd never seen anything like it before. And I asked her what it was, and she said it was a grain mill. And she started telling me how she grinds her own grains and how much more nutritious they are, and the process that you go through to grind them. Well, and then when we got home, my husband found out his diagnosis, and I started diligently changing our eating habits. And one thing that kept coming up as I was studying how to do this was the value of whole grains. I am very, very passionate about this, and I know not all of you will be interested in it, but hopefully by the time this video is finished, you'll have a little more knowledge of the importance of whole grains. First thing I want to do is show you some grains here, and I'm going to pull the camera down so that you can see them. I put one on a piece of white paper. I don't know that it helps that much. But basically, this is one kernel, or they call it a wheat berry, because all three of these are wheat. And inside this is an explosion of nutrients. And scientists have found these that they think is at least 2,000 years old. And when they put them in water, they sprouted, so there was still life in them. And in each one of these little tiny grains, there's three components. There's the bran, which is the outer shell of it, the endosperm, which is a large part of it, and the germ, which has a lot of nutrients to it. But the problem was, before the 1920s, ladies would go to or gentlemen too, would go to the grain mill either daily or every time they were ready to make bread, and they would either have their grain ground up or else they would buy the freshly ground grain. Now, why was this important? It was important because about 72% of the nutrients that are in grains, and these nutrients are many. There's carbohydrates, there's fiber, antioxidants, protein and calcium, iron and magnesium, and it's also filling and satisfying when you cook with whole grains. But then about 1920, some innovative inventors found a way to separate the components of the grains. They would sell the bran part of it as cattle feed, and the endosperm they would use for white flour, and the germ they would use for other things, because it's the germ in the grain that makes it go rancid, and so it didn't have a very long shelf life in the store. But they used it for other things, and that was the invention of white bread. And white bread is sometimes called the first fast food. But most of the nutrients were taken out of it, and I want to show you something here as an example. This is a loaf of white bread that I just bought from the store. if I take it, I can squeeze it up to about nothing. And because a lot of it is just air, the nutrients and the fiber have been taken out of it. Now, there are still some breads that you can buy that are nutritious, though. If you can find whole grain, 100% whole wheat, or whatever grain you're using, and if it has the mark of whole grain, it's just a little rectangle square in it, that is substantial whole grain bread. Now back to the grinder. When I came home and was studying all of this stuff, I ordered me a grinder just like she did. Mine is called a Nutrimill. There's several different brands that you can get, but this one I've had for 10 years and it's still going strong. And I'm going to turn this on just for a minute to give you an idea of what it does. And it is loud, so I'll give you fair warning about it. Now, when I'm making bread, I like to use some hard white, either spring or winter wheat, and then a little bit of hard red wheat. It gives it a nutty flavor, but if you use that all by yourself, it's just too much. There is also a soft white that I use to make cookies and pie crusts and things like that. It has a fluffier thing. But I'm going to pour some grains into what's called the hopper, and I'm going to turn it on and show you what it does. So get ready for the noise. And the thing about it, when they started separating the grains from the bran and the endosperm and the germ, there was a lot of health problems that developed in the United States. Beriberi and pellagra were two of them, and they were vitamin B deficiencies of thiamine and niacin. And so the government made these entrepreneurs fortify the bread and put synthetic vitamins in there to replace that, and it did help the problem with the beriberi and the pellagra. But then other issues started coming up too when they started enriching the flour. And now one thing in the United States and other countries is we have a big problem with constipation, and people take medicine for it. It's a billion-dollar industry, and if they would use just whole grains, that would help a lot. But I want to show you the flour that we milled. It has a brown tinge to it because the bran is still in there. This is a very fine, and you can adjust how fine you want your grain ground in with the bread mills. Okay, that's a little lesson on making your own flour. I hope if you have questions about this that you would comment, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that I could for you. There is a website that was a tremendous help to me when I started grinding my own grains, and it's called Bread Beckers, B-E-C-K-E-R-S. They're out of Georgia. She has a tremendous amount of videos that you can watch, and they sell equipment too for making bread and other things. But you might check that website out. I think you'll enjoy it. Okay, for the best part of it, here is a loaf of bread that I made this morning. And we're just going to cut us a little slice. It's still warm. And this is what the bread looks like. Again, it has a light brown tinge to it because of the whole grain and the bran. You know, bread is a staple in just about every country, and it's been called the staff of life. So this bread is very satisfying, and I think if you tried it, you would enjoy it. Is there an investment in doing this? Yes, there is. These grain mills are not cheap, so if it's something that you would want to do, it does require an investment. Okay, we're going to put some homemade butter on here. And there you go. I hope you got something out of this video today. And like I said, I promise our next video will be making breads and rolls with white flour. And our daughter put a little teaser about making pizza dough. And I will do that too. So I hope y'all have a good day. And if you just read my shirt, it says, stay calm and wash your hands. And during this time of pandemic, that's very important. Have a blessed day.